This is Keep On Cooking, a podcast for people who love cookbooks and want to know more about the authors. It's also a great place to get a weekly dose of culinary inspiration to keep things pumping in the kitchen. So grab a cookbook and keep on cooking. I'm Dustin Harder, and this is Keep On Cooking. Hello and welcome to Keep On Cooking, the only podcast dedicated to plant-based cookbooks. I'm your host, Dustin Harder, and it's 2025. 2025 is my year, or at least January. Let's not overcommit, right? And that's right. Happy New Year to all of you beautiful people. And thank you so much for listening to the Keep On Cooking podcast and using recipes from the Keep On Cooking blog. Your support means everything. We have a fabulous new book that is about to come out. Eat What Elephants Eat, Vegan Recipes for a Strong Body and a Gentle Spirit. We're going to be talking about this book today. Even better, we're going to be joined by the talented and charming author, Dominick Thompson. But before we get into the interview, this is the part where I usually tell you about a couple new releases coming up. But this week, with it being New Year's Eve and everything, and people often trying to make some progress in the new year with health and wellness goals, I thought it would be of benefit to some if I gave a couple recommendations of cookbooks that are written by some talented dietitians that are already out there for you to purchase right now. The first one I want to recommend is The Simple Vegan Kitchen, Nutritionally Balanced, Easy, and Delicious Plant-Based Meals for Daily Wellness by Lauren McNeil. In The Simple Vegan Kitchen, nothing beats a homemade meal that comes together easily with pantry ingredients, fuels your body, and tastes amazing. Registered dietitian and creator of Tasting to Thrive, Lauren McNeil knows that nutritionally balanced food sustains daily wellness long-term only when it's yummy enough to eat every day. Lauren prioritizes flavor in her recipes without sacrificing a proper mix of plant-based protein, carbohydrates, and fats alongside key nutrients like iron, calcium, and omega-3. And you can check out episode 103 of Keep On Cooking to hear from Lauren herself as I chat through the whole book with her. I got to tell you, one of my favorite recipes from this book is the lasagna soup. It's hearty, it's rich, it's so delicious. And then I also love the carrot cake overnight oats. I've made those several times. My sister also loves the carrot cake overnight oats. So a couple recommendations for you already from there. But please go check out that episode 103, to hear more from Lauren about that book. The next book I want to recommend to you is the New York Times bestseller, Peaceful Kitchen, more than 100 cozy plant-based recipes to comfort the body and nourish the soul by Catherine Perez. Now, Perez helps you take the stress out of eating with recipes that pull from the Mexican and Dominican dishes and flavors she was raised on, adding her own delicious twist, served with a side of latest evidence-based research. From sweet hoisin glazed tofu bowls to breakfast tostadas, she shows you how eating healthfully doesn't mean eating blandly. Inviting you into her own life, Perez inspires you to make the kitchen a true expression of yourself, bringing your own imagination, heritage, and fun to mealtime so you can cultivate calm as you prepare mindful, sustainable meals. Now, I'm obsessed with the single serve chocolate chip cookie from this book. I think I've made it about 6 times. And guess what? Of course, we had Catherine as a guest on Keep On Cooking, and her episode featuring this book, Peaceful Kitchen, comes out next Tuesday on January 7th. And we're starting the year off right here, right? With some awesome authors and great books. So be sure to tune in next week to learn more about this book and why I'm recommending it for you for the new year, new you bonanza. New year, new you, honey, right? I mean, be the old you. I love the old you. But if you want to incorporate some new habits into the old you, become a little more, do you, right? You know what's best for you. Hopefully one of these books hit the mark for you. In general, I recommend these 2 books for the month when people start looking at their health and wellness a little closer, because both of these RDs believe in balance. They believe in feeding cravings just as much as they do getting your fruits and veggies as a means of a healthy and sustainable diet. This means they aren't in the camp of eliminating everything to be healthy, rather finding balance so you can enjoy food for both function and flavor, which I support. On the note of RDs, our fun fact today is about just that. I was curious, when did registered dietitians become a thing? And here's what ChatGPT says. Registered dietitians became officially recognized in 1917 with the founding of the American Dietetic Association, now the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. This was in response to the need for experts in food and nutrition during World War I to help manage food shortages and improve public health. And just so we're all on the same page of what a registered dietitian is, the purpose of a registered dietitian is to promote health and wellness through evidence-based nutrition advice, tailored meal planning, and education. They work in various settings, including hospitals, schools, public health organizations, and private practice to prevent and treat chronic diseases and improve overall nutritional health. So you can see why I'm recommending books from RDs as we enter into the new year. Special shout out to my RD colleagues at PCRM, Anna, Stephanie, Noah. We love you. Thank you for all you do to make the world a better place. And now we're on to today's guest, y'all. We've got Dominick Thompson. Dominick Thompson is a leading voice in the ethical, vegan, and no-meat athlete movements. An Ironman triathlete and social entrepreneur, Dom re-entered the workforce after his imprisonment and began competing in endurance races, including marathons, triathlons, and ultra races. He eventually became an executive at a leading healthcare company where he saved money enough to launch Eat What Elephants Eat, an online nutrition and wellness program that gives subscribers a personalized plant-based plan with daily meal recommendations. I absolutely adore Dominick and couldn't be more thrilled about his debut cookbook that is also a bit of a memoir. Eat What Elephants Eat, vegan recipes for a strong body and a gentle spirit. Here he is to tell us all about it. It's Dominick Thompson. It's the man who lives by the mantra, if it requires harm, then nah. He's all about good food, good health, and good vibes. Please welcome to the Keep on Cookin' podcast, the creator of Eat What Elephants Eat, Dom Thompson.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate that. Such an honor. And an honor to be here in my hometown, Chicago.
Yes. Yeah. You are the first in-person guest, so it is an absolute honor for me. I appreciate you taking the time to stop in. We're going to start with your icebreaker question. So what's one thing that people often get wrong about you?
That I'm not vegan. Meaning when they look at me just from without knowing who I am, they assume that I'm just another guy that eats meat because of my size.
Sure.
You know? I'm about 230 pounds. I'm a big dude. So usually that's always, and the first thing that they get wrong about me when I tell them I'm vegan, they just flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Sure. Especially when I tell them how long I've been vegan. They just can't believe it.
And how long have you been vegan?
Now I've been vegan for about 14 years, and prior to that, vegetarian for 10 years. So collectively, it's been about 24 years since I've been in this community.
Isn't that wild? Did it creep up on you, that number?
It did. It's like you know it, but I don't remember. So I am one of the very few don't remember the exact date, but I have the idea and the yearish.
Yep.
You know, so you know, if I really wanted to drill down, I could, but it's not that important.
Yeah,
I just know it's been over 2 decades.
Yep, that's awesome. Yeah, it's the same for me. The only reason I know it was around Easter because the last meat that I ate was my mom's pot roast, and that's the only reason I know. Like, I don't think it was on Easter. I just think it was like around them. Yeah. But it crept on me. This year is my 15th year, and I wasn't even like thinking about it. And suddenly I was like, oh, 15th. So when you said it, like close to the same time, I was like, look at that.
Yeah, and the pot roast is such a Midwest thing too, right?
It is. It's funny.
I know.
Yes, you say that because I was looking. I've got all the cookbooks behind me, and the other day I was like, I've never created like a seitan pot roast. And I'm like,
me either.
Well, I was like, but I'm sure someone has. And I've got Miyoko's meat book up there, and I've got Issa's fake meat book up there, and there's not a pot roast in there.
It has to be you or me. Two guys from the Midwest.
Yeah,
we probably need to co-collaborate to do that. Because I haven't done it yet either. Because it's definitely a Midwest.
Well,
thing.
And I wanted to. Seitan is always like so. I don't want to say tough because it can be tender, but like I want it to be that sort of like shredded, like you know what I mean,
it's
like
falling apart a little bit, like the roast itself. Yeah.
Yep.
maybe we could do like a mushroom,
Yeah,
you know.
something like that, because my mom used to make it in the slow cooker, I think, and it would like anyways we'll
Now you got
figure
me
it out.
now you got
I
me
know we
hungry,
got
right?
plans to cook after this. On things that someone often gets wrong about me, people always think I'm a big extrovert, and I'm pretty
Really?
introverted. Yeah, and they think that because of stuff like this, and I'm like I like talking to people, and I like doing things and being out in the world, but
Yeah.
it depletes my energy pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think my dog is behind me getting all the toys. So if you
That's
hear some,
okay.
I'm not going to stop him. He's having a good time. I'm
Yeah.
not going to stop him. But yeah, people think that I am just I'm just so outgoing all the time, but it like really takes my energy. Like for you, when you do events, do you feel a little like zapped after, like if you have to like present or talk to a lot of people, or does that feed you?
It really depends on the event, the size, the location. Sometimes I will say this, when it's something that a location I've never been to, it's exciting and it's electrifying. So I don't feel too zapped about it. So it's hit and miss for sure.
That makes sense.
I think we all are naturally like kind of get exhausted after a big presentation sometimes, but for the most part, just seeing, especially the impact after the presentations, when the mom and dads come up to me, even the grandmothers or the college students, and they're inspired by the talk, that just gets me going.
Yeah.
Gives me
I love that.
goosebumps.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm a very I think people think in their brain that like I want to go out and be social all the time, when ultimately I want to sit at home with my dog. I want to like watch TV. It takes energy and effort, but also when I get out, I do enjoy being around people.
Same. There's a balance there.
There's a balance. There's a balance. And I first met you. I need your help remembering this. I met you at a restaurant in New York. We judged a contest together. Was it a taco contest or a macaroni and cheese contest?
That is a really, really good question.
Can't remember either.
I want to say it was a taco. No, it was macaroni and cheese.
Okay.
It was. Okay. Now I remember. Yeah. Wasn't it at the what's that spot?
I can't remember the name of it.
The
V spot.
The V spot.
When you said spot now, I just remembered
V
it.
Spot.
No longer there, I think. I think it's not there. Yeah. But they were a great event for a great venue for some time. They held a lot of different events there, because I judged a taco contest at one point. I did a couple of vegan markets there, and then I also judged that macaroni and cheese contest.
Yeah, it was a great event too. They used to have a lot of great turnouts.
Yeah,
I wonder what happened to them too.
The world with vegan businesses is so hard. When did we meet? 2016, I want to say.
Yeah, it was a while. It was close to 10 years ago. It was a long time ago. Yeah.
It was fun though. We had a good time. Put me in a room and have me try a bunch of mac and cheese. I'm fine with that.
It was right before the vegan golden era when we really took off.
Yes. You are correct. It was right around that time.
We're in the dark era. We're regressing.
Yep, the roller coaster with all this too shall pass. Well, we are here to talk about your book that is coming out January 7th, Eat What Elephants Eat, Vegan Recipes for a Strong Body and a Gentle Spirit. Listeners, this is available for pre-order now, and you want to get it everywhere books are sold. And this book is just as much about the recipes as it is about your life, a bit of a memoir in the beginning of it. You talk about growing up on the west side of Chicago, where you were lured into the drug trade at a young age, and you speak to your time in federal prison, but you also speak about the constant pull you had inside between being pulled into a life that you were surrounded by from an early age and creating a life that was true to you and your core values. So a life beyond hustling, you say in the book. So can you speak to that a little bit, navigating those two worlds?
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting transition, because I grew up where I had this amazing role model for a mother. My mom was a single mom, working two jobs. One as an LPN, and anyone knows anything about nursing, LPNs don't get paid anything. They're very low salary, and let alone to be an LPN in the 80s. She was a pediatric nurse in the mornings, and in the evening she was a nurse taking care of seniors at a nursing facility in Skokie, Illinois. Wow. Specifically, since we're in Chicago. And just to keep the lights on, we stayed in a 1-bedroom apartment, 4 of us in total, including her. And it was humble beginnings, you know, like I've seen a lot and experienced a lot on the west side of Chicago, but to see her, you know, with that ambition and tenacity, with all that adversity that she was facing without any help, it kind of instilled in me to be a hard worker, while also seeing the opportunities that was starting to happen in that marginalized community that I was staying in at the time, to basically hustle, you know, where I was able to, I wouldn't say I was groomed, but I was, you know, kind of conditioned by other people, my family. I had some cousins that was like some heavy in the game. And it kind of had an influence on me in different capacities. So I had one type of role model, and then I had another type of role model. But I did what I needed to do to get to where I needed to get, while also focusing hard on school and then playing football. And that old world just kind of caught up with me while I was in college for design. I was actually going to Columbia, Chicago, specifically, and that old world caught up with me, where I got indicted for um, drug trafficking, basically. From my past specifically, I was pretty much out the game, but it was a situation that caught up with me through some informants. Yeah.
And you spoke of your mom and the core values that your mom has, and it goes along with, I was intrigued when in the book, when you're talking about when you're in prison, and listeners, the book is really a great read. So it says just so much about his life and what got you to veganism.
Yeah.
And so definitely read over this in the beginning, because you get some great insight into it. But I want to talk about your mom, because you're talking about being in prison in the book and realizing that you're there for the consequences of your actions.
Absolutely.
But also understanding or searching for a deeper meaning to it, which I just thought was so insightful. So you go on to say that you knew that your mother's love and the values she taught you shaped your heart and your mind. I love that so much. And I often ask authors sort of when veganism became part of their life on this podcast. And for you, it was in prison. You had a moment. So can you elaborate on this moment for listeners?
Yeah, I had an aha moment. But yeah, to the listeners, just so you guys know, and I appreciate you letting them know that this is one of first types of cookbooks. Is what we deem a hybrid at Simon and Schuster, the publishing company. You get the introduction, which is a really great introduction to give you my why and who I am and what got me to get to where I'm going today in this lifestyle of compassion. So we did spend a lot of time talking about the origins of who I am, and also the origins of other things related to the food that we cook in this book and more, including we had a deep dive into gang activities, how the original gangs, a lot of people don't realize this, was created to help empower young Black communities and more. So we go into all these different ecosystems, including what's happening with animal agriculture, how it's having an impact on ecosystems and marginalized communities, how you as a consumer has an impact on that. So there's a lot of great wealth of information into this book that we even had to condense it a little bit. It was longer than this.
It must have been so hard.
It was yeah, because we put together this really incredible guide and detailed book that has so much data
and important data.
Yeah, just incredible data. But we, you know, for the purposes of publishing and budgeting and more, and not to say that we won't present that later on. There definitely could be a part 2 in the future, but it was a great, it took us 2 years to put together this incredible book. But to answer the other part of your question, yeah, I had a moment. There I was sitting in prison. I was trying to figure out my why at that time. Like, I understood for the actions that led up to that point, the consequences. But to me, I felt like there was something else happening. Why was I removed from this very busy society? And people always think that they know themselves. You always hear people say, I know myself, and I had a chance to really do some deep dive and thinking. But, you know, we live in a world where you're distracted by so much, from social media to personal lives and music and more. But people that really do know themselves are usually people that are isolated in scenarios like I was. I was isolated. Here I was in my jail cell, and just trying to make sense of it all. And I got down on my knees. I'm not religious. I'm spiritual, but I prayed. And I prayed to God for some clear answers and messaging in my jail cell my first week there. And I was trying to make sense of it all. And when I prayed, this memory from when I was a child at 8 years old came into my thoughts like a light bulb. And I remember it. I tell this story all the time. You guys probably some of the OGs that know
those
me,
that know you,
you know this story where I'm going with this. And I was sitting at the kitchen table. I was 8 years old, 8-year-old Dominick eating chicken wings, and I was always a picky eater. You know, like when you look at chicken wings, at least for me, you can see the anatomy. And when you think critical about what you're picking from those tendons, you know, and removing the flesh, and it's surrounded by so much anatomy, including the dried up veins and more the cartilage, just in general. I was already turned off by chicken wings. I was one of those very picky kids where I just never liked chicken wings, but I had enough at that point. Like I will always maybe take 1 or 2 detachments of the flesh of the chicken wing and eat it, and then just put the rest away full of all that batter and skin and additional meat that was left on the tendons. I wasted a lot of my mom's chicken that she cooked over the years. And there I was in that moment looking at those chicken wings. Then I looked at my arms, and I looked at my mom, and I looked back at those chicken wings, and I just looked at her and said, I can't do it anymore. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, they look like little bitty arms. And we had a bump. That was a moment, what religious people would say, coming to Jesus moment. And it's not like she can instantly open up a laptop. This is the 80s, guys. Keep this in mind. So it's not like she could pop over the laptop like, okay, my kid doesn't want to eat meat. What do I do? There was no resources like that.
Nothing.
You know, we had encyclopedias back then.
Right.
So.
For those of you that don't know, it's like 1,000-pound internet you carried around that had about 28 versions of it.
So many different versions of it. In alphabetical order too. But here I was saying no to chicken wings. And so my mom kind of followed her own intuition, and she taught me, I'm a chip off the old block. She said, well, then you're not going to eat. And I was like, I'm not going to eat. And so she followed her intuition, and she went to the grocery store, and she just bought a bunch of fish sticks. Because when she figured, when you think about it, and critically think about it, the food that a lot of us eat to this day of all generation is aesthetically created by, you know, engineering and food scientists to be presentable. If we truly look at some of the food how it got to our plates, and see it for what it really is, a lot of us would be vegan. We would stop eating meat. Especially kids, you know, specifically. So these fish sticks, they just look, you know, cute and aesthetic and look presentable. So I grew up eating a lot of fish sticks, and that memory just popped up in my head when I prayed. And then I created a mantra right then and there for myself. I did a hard reset that if it requires harm, then no, or nah, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And that was about 24 years ago.
Yeah. You mentioned that in the book. You talk about the fish sticks and also I think chicken nuggets maybe. And you talk about that, how kids, I never thought about that, how that has been engineered to actually not resemble the animal, so that kids are not, we're not thinking about it then when we're eating that as children. Really, we're just thinking, oh, we're eating this thing that was put in front of me.
Strategically, it's a old way of what the food industry has done to condition us at a young age to make food presentable. You package it up, you know, and so you grow up not realizing that, especially chicken nuggets, it's just a byproduct of that industry specifically, where it's just a bunch of mixed in food that's on the scrapping tables, basically. The slaughtered chicken in itself. So you could be eating all types of stuff out of that actual chicken nugget, right, when you really think about it.
Well, you have this moment in prison. If it
Yeah.
requires harm, then nah. And you mentioned for years you believe strength meant being physically, financially, and emotionally dominant man. That's what strength meant to you for years. But as you matured and you were following your do no harm path, your new definition of strength became a non-gendered one based on compassion, empathy, and vulnerability. Your vision of strength is inspired by your mother, for reasons you've already mentioned, and the mighty African elephant. So tell us what those inspirations look like for these two things for you.
Yeah. So it's funny that you mentioned that the elephant in itself. Years later, when my platform took off, we had different opportunities, and this is back in the golden years of social media, when if you had 30,000 followers, that was like
that was everything.
300,000
Yeah.
followers, right?
Yeah.
Engagement was 30%, and everything was in chronological order. But I would travel all over the world giving these speaking engagements and educating people. What I found in my own trial and tribulations of and experience when I was speaking to these massive audiences, it's always, humans are visual creatures. So my visual aids would go up there on some of my academic talks, but I will always challenge people to ask them right up front, who do you think is the biggest, largest, strongest vegan, far as land mammals is concerned, in the world? And a lot of them didn't know the answer right away. And I tell them, the elephant, and they was like, that's right, elephants are herbivores. And what do they eat? They're like, oh, plants. Yeah, plants specifically. So it's symbolic, because you can look at, even in the very masculine driven football industry community, or sports in general, most sports, all sports actually, is symbolic, and it's all rooted in having some type of fixated animal as a brand or logo. And men, in their studies out there, show that men like to represent something that they feel very proud of, to represent in their own way, that they're one of those mascots per se, or an animal per se. And there's nothing more very powerful and very thought-provoking when you think about it than an elephant specifically. So when you present that type of information to audiences or different people, they start to think like, yeah, it's not really about size. It's really just about how we are engineered through natural selection and more. So I brought that together, the strength and the symbolic history of what truly elephants represent, to also the strength of my incredible single, at the time, my mother, she was a single Black mother raising three of us, with so many different challenges here in Chicago's West Side. And that is a representation of who I am from my origins, to also what I end up becoming, which is just a very compassionate dude that's just showing people that you don't need to kill animals, or need to, as a consumer, purchase from industries that are slaughtering animals to be big and strong, because I'm one of the biggest and strongest vegan guys that you will ever meet. And I owe it all to plants specifically. And you can't escape the data, you can't escape the science. And I not only walk the walk, but I talk the talk, and vice versa. Not only do I talk the talk, I walk the walk. And I'm glad to show people what we can do as vegans, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, in this book, we get that glimpse into your history with all of this, and what inspired the birth of Eat What Elephants Eat. And you help readers connect the dots in so many arenas. You've already touched on it a bit, but I want to give listeners a clear idea of what all the data essentially that you're able to offer in this book. So you help readers connect the dots in arenas of race and class in our food system, environmental racism, environmental health, and social justice issues. You talk about how to be an ally in the misuse of resources, toxic waste, and other environmental harms. And then you get into the 9 steps to the Eat What Elephants Eat mindset. So mindset, everybody. And to summarize the Eat What Elephants Eat mindset, please share for our listeners what that mindset is.
It's really about, digging into your why, and whether you're talking about accepting your past or where you're trying to go with your future, there's so many in summary, and I don't want to get boggled down. I think people think this is a very complex step-by-step guide, but overall we're introducing to you different ways to adopt this new lifestyle, specifically whether you want to crowd it out or whether you wanted to use transitional products. And there's a lot of great transitional, I deem them as transitional products on the market when it comes to like faux meats and stuff like that. I personally prefer the whole plant-based food approach and just making vegetables very savory or sweet depending on the recipe. But we give you different ways to either do it from a reducitarian approach or a full-on stop approach, or in the way that you think, if you want to go 50-50 in different capacities. But there's so many ways to adopt this lifestyle, and we help you identify, as I mentioned before, your why, whether it be for environmental reasons, that you care about the environment, whether it be for your health reasons or your family's health reasons, whether it be like me, for ethical reasons. And we cover a whole canvas of multifaceted bubbles of data that really help you connect the specific dots. And I kind of promise you guys, we spent a lot of time too seeing what makes readers and people transition and connect the dots. And I think we hit a home run with this one. So if you are needing someone to in a very intimate way, what I like about the book, when we were sitting down and writing it too, because a lot of this writing happened right in my own kitchen, going back and forth with my co-pilot and more, and going back and forth with my editing team and more. But it all happened through my kitchen, which is a very intimate setting. And I think a lot, and you're a chef, you understand this, the kitchen to me is the most intimate setting, excluding the bedroom, in the home. It's where you have some of your most heart-to-heart conversations and some of your most breakthrough moments specifically. And you can really find so much soul searching all through food. Food is a form of intimacy, and I don't think a lot of us talk a lot about that.
Yeah, I actually love you saying that, because as you're saying it, I'm thinking also it's a place where we take care of each other almost mindlessly, because you cook for people. Even if you're cooking for yourself, it's such a form of self-care. If you're deciding to, I mean, if you're putting a frozen meal in the microwave, that's fine too, but also if you're getting in the kitchen and actually cooking something that's nourishing your body, that's just a great form of self-care. And I love you're talking about this why and getting to it through the mindset, the 9 steps. You've got 9 steps to this too. So I'm going to list them. We don't have to get into the weeds about it, but we've got to accept your past, learn from your mistakes, recognize possibilities over limitations. Love that one. Prioritize growth over mastery. Excellent. Activate your compassion. Be a protector. Be vulnerable. Make space for self-reflection, and be like an elephant. So good. So good. And you talked about the why a little. I've had to, when I've done some fitness programs where they're like, what is your why? And I remember being like, what? But this really breaks it down in a digestible way for people to understand. So, but tell the listeners, why is the why so important?
Yeah, because if you identify your why, and some of us don't, sometimes some of us are on autopilot in some capacity. Life is busy, life is complex, and there's no perfect answer to your why. But I promise you, when you find it and why it's important, it keeps you to be true to yourself, meaning you will be sustainable in this lifestyle. You will stick with it, specifically when you identify your why and your reason for adopting this lifestyle. And the why applies to every lifestyle or every micro decision you make within your own lifestyle, from professional to personal to love life in general. When you identify your why, you are a reflection of conviction, self-conviction, and you will stick to it. Specifically, it's the most sustainable way to stick to any lifestyle choice.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. The why is so important. It's been so helpful to me over the years and different. And I think, I mean, at least for me, but I think maybe important to say, I don't know if you'll agree, your why can change over time.
Yeah, of
You know,
course.
people
Yeah.
don't need to get stuck. I feel like
Yeah.
sometimes we talk about these things, and it's important to say that too. People hear
So
things and they
important.
go, oh, we need a why, and then I'm going to stick to that one thing. You may
So
think your
important.
why is one thing, and 3 months later you're like, oh, actually my why is this, and that's going to like catapult you into a whole nother great being of yourself, you know.
I agree with you because my why originally started for ethical reasons in
Mm-hmm,
prison,
mm-hmm.
where it's like, okay, hard reset, leave animals alone, no brainer, right? And this is 24 years ago, guys. We didn't have the data and the
Right,
science to
right.
show what this diet can do to your personal health, what it can do to ecosystems and climate
Mm-hmm.
change and impact, from your carbon footprint and more. And years later, my original why for ethical reasons turned into, I'm doing it not only for me and animals, I'm doing it also for the environment. I'm doing it for my loved ones. I'm doing it to be a great example in my community. It's so many different ways to attack that why and to expand it, because that's what it's about, expanding too. Yeah, and in fact, I think it's even more important. The more whys you have, the better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Mine also shifted, specifically when I think about veganism. Mine shifted, and now it's funny you say the more wise, because it's when I look at my it's all the things.
Yeah.
It's the animals, the
All
health,
of
the
them.
environment. You know,
Yeah.
and it originally started for vanity purposes. I was like, how can I maintain my weight a little bit? You know,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
that's the good thing though. If you can allow yourself to be expansive about it, it can take you to great places.
absolutely.
Well, you get into the nutrition of it all with information on macronutrients and micronutrients, carbohydrates, fiber, and our gut microbiome, fat and protein. You even have a chart that breaks down the protein of several common foods. You actually have charts for many of these elements, and I just mentioned to give people visuals, including the Eat What Elephants Eat plate that is half vegetables. Everybody, a quarter of the plate is complex carbohydrates, and a quarter of the plate is filled with protein-rich plants, in which you indicate what pages to find the charts on, making this incredibly user-friendly. So you talk about the 3 pathways to eat what elephants eat and meal plans. Let's chat through those. The first one is called the crowded out pathway. So how does that work, the crowded out pathway?
Yeah, the crowded out pathway, and just to you just touched on a real important point. I think we should also discuss really quickly, the protein rich plants, right?
Yes.
I think sometimes people think, when they think of protein, they think the only source of protein is through animal flesh and meat, and that's just simply not true. Anything, and I have to listen carefully, guys, to this. Anything that's consumable or edible for mammals specifically is a form of protein, meaning your most processed box foods have some form of protein. It may not be rich in protein and high in protein content, but everything we consume as mammals has protein in it specifically. One of the most beautiful things now too, and again, science, right, and data shows that when you move the middleman, which is animals, you get in the most cleanest forms and highest rich form of protein in itself, instead of recycled protein, and that's through plants. So my point to you all is, let's just go directly to the source, because the source is one of the most beautiful ways that the body responds to protein in itself specifically. Not to mention too, also keep in mind, there's only so much protein that we can digest in one sitting as human beings. So all of that agendas or narratives that's being pushed out there, you need protein, 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 protein. Just keep that in mind, that you can only digest so much, and the rest is just really going out your ass. It's just like waste. I don't know. Can we cuss on here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Please. Yep.
But yeah, the crowded out pathway, the fake it till you make it pathway, the cold tofurkey pathways, it's just really going back to some of the things we discussed in the 9 steps, where there's different ways to do it, from a reducitarian approach to crowding it out, or the option of faux meats and more. It's just gives you a different end way into adopting this lifestyles, without you really breaking your head. Because what we learned is, a lot of people, especially now, and I think that has a lot to do with the complexity of and the fast-paced life we live in, people do want their hands held.
Oh yeah.
And I will say, this book is doing a lot of handheld. We holding a lot of hands in that capacity. But that's really what those 3 pillars really represents in that capacity on how you approach those specific things.
Yeah, you're holding people's hands, but then you're doing it so that you can let their hands go eventually.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's different.
Yeah.
There's the 3 different pathways: the crowded out pathway, the fake it till you make it pathway, and the cold tofurkey pathway. So essentially, Dom's meeting you where you're at and ready to help you out.
Yep.
Tackle this any way that works for you, so you can pick which way to start. And all of these pathways include tips, tricks, and meal plans in them to keep anyone on track no matter what pathway they choose. And then we get into the Eat What Elephants Eat kitchen ingredients, covering items like oils, salts, flours, grains, plant-based egg swaps, meat and fish swaps, plant-based milk, soy and tofu, caring and cooking for mushrooms, sweeteners, flavor and texture enhancers, and even dietary supplements. Then you go on to cover some basics about kitchen equipment. And now we have arrived, my friend, to my favorite part always, the food of it all, the food of the matter, the recipes. So here begins the recipe portion of Eat What Elephants Eat, vegan recipes for a strong body and a gentle spirit. First section is pantry, fridge, and freezer. So our first recipe section in here, featuring items like scratch-made veggie broth, a variety of cashew bases for basic cashew cream, sweet cream, sour cream, and even cashew mayo, dressings like ranch dressing and Caesar, and DIY spice mixes like taco seasoning and Italian seasoning, old standbys like hummus and guacamole. You talk about batch cooking even with beans and grains. So when we look at this section, what are a couple items for you that you always have on hand from here that you go to again and again?
Yeah, you mean in my personal kitchen?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have all types of nuts.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
different containers specifically. I understand though there's a lot of people with nut allergies out there, so we give you the option as a alternative to that. But for those of you that don't have a nut allergy, some of your best recipes, well, some of your most fatty recipes, such as the mayos out there and the different guacamole type of styles, to more even your Alfredos out there. I make a really good Alfredo with cashews and other nuts, but also I make a really good Alfredo with cauliflower.
Nice.
Specifically where
Very
I
good.
don't want to be feeling very lethargic, you know.
Yeah, or weighed down. It's nice and light with that
weighed
cauliflower.
down.
That's good.
Because nuts will weigh you down.
That's
They
true.
will. They
Yeah.
will. They'll hit that core and everything like that.
Uh-huh.
But you know, we need to sometimes have balance and more. But it's not, you know, nuts are a fat specifically, but you know, they're not bad fats.
Yeah, it's
in
good
that
fat.
capacity.
You just gotta watch
It's good
yourself.
fats.
Gotta
You
get
just
your
gotta watch
balance.
yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I keep nuts. I keep all types of spices, fresh. All types of leafy greens. I love the dino kale. It's one of my favorites. The classic kale, specifically. I love all sorts of tomatoes from Romont to the heirloom to more specifically. I keep mushrooms. Tons of tofu blocks, obviously.
So much tofu.
Yeah, so much.
I love it.
Tofu is being competitive now in my kitchen with chickpeas.
Ah,
I feel like chickpeas is the new tofu. Like, I mean,
put them together.
You could do so. Yeah, you can. I do sometimes put them together. So I do have a lot of chickpeas specifically. And all, as I mentioned, all types of spices. I like to cook with from sea salt to smoked paprika to fresh dill. I prefer fresh dill, but we always don't have that luxury. To parsley and more. So I keep I have a lot of what I mentioned in the book on hand because I eat a lot too. Specifically, I cook almost every day.
Yeah. Have you been to La Samia in Atlanta?
Of course.
Right.
Yeah,
Good.
Probably about 60, and I'm not over exaggerating. 60 times.
Yeah, and I love Sophia and Reed, and
Sophia
they're
and
just
Reed,
great.
shout out to them. They did a really good job.
They were our it's one of our saddest points in leaving Atlanta. We were like, I think it might have been the last meal we had too. We were like, oh, and not to get sad. We love you. Soph and Reed, we love you so
Yeah,
much and love
yeah.
Los
Great
Angeles.
restaurant.
I thought
guys.
of it because you said mushrooms, and then I was like, oh,
Yeah.
has he been there and had, because Reed is always Chef Reed. Lost me, everybody. I know we've talked about it on the podcast a million times probably, but Chef
Yeah.
Reed
No,
knows
Reed
what he's
did
doing.
He knows what he's doing with those mushrooms.
Mhm.
Yeah, shout out to Reed for
Yep,
sure.
so good. Well, next up is the breakfast section. I love breakfast. What's a number one breakfast you would recommend in this section for someone who just picked up a copy of the book?
I would say the classic scrambled tofu.
Okay.
Like it's the go-to where if you're missing out, any typical American Western diet go-to breakfast is going to start with eggs. And the way you can scramble tofu today, and you can do it through mung beans and chickpeas
Sure.
and other ways. There's other options, not just through tofu. But that recipe specifically, it's very nostalgic. It tastes very much like scrambled eggs, but you can also make it into a hash and more. It's full of micro and macronutrients that are very wholesome and very light on you too. And it's a holistic recipe that you don't have to leave out of your house feeling very tied down specifically. So it's a great morning starter of a recipe. I recommend that specifically. And one of my favorites too, the waffles as well too.
Those beet waffles, right?
Beet waffles, yeah.
Gorgeous, bold, and beautiful beet waffles. They're called. It's a deep, like rich pink waffle.
Deep, naturally sweetened already from the
Yes,
beets specifically.
It's boasting that superfood with the beets. So why beets for it then?
Yeah, because so many of us like to have that sweet and savory. And when I was creating this recipe years and years ago, sometimes you think outside the box, like not to go back to the Alfredo. But
why not go back to the Alfredo?
So when I do my cauliflower Alfredo, when I use that Blendtec and food processor, I sometimes, as you know, as a chef, the flavoring profile pairs good with other flavors.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of using something like sugar cane or maple syrup or agave, why not use something that's originally is source itself, which is fruit? And I tried different pairings, and the mango it doesn't taste like mango when you use that in the Alfredo. It has that natural sweetener, but it gives it a different sweetness that pairs really well with the savory of it. And the same thing I discovered when I've been using beets. I think beets is such a underrated vegetable. It has a lot of antioxidants and more, and it's just such a beautiful vegetable to work with specifically. But it gives that waffle or that pancake just a different flavoring profile that you cannot match just through maple syrup itself. Yeah.
It's
you can actually use it almost. I guess the best comparison to say, imagine taking that beet waffle and putting a scrambled tofu in the middle and making a sandwich. It's almost like having a scrambled tofu croissant. It's another version of, like, how good croissants is with the breading. Yeah. It's the same. It's in a league in its own.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's really good.
You know how croissants stand out like the hero of the breads?
Yeah.
The beet waffle stands, or any beet pancakes, it stands off as the hero of the basic ass pancakes.
Yes. Yeah. And that is the name of it, everybody. I didn't just say that. It's bold and beautiful beet waffles. So when you get the book and you're looking for it, because now you're going to be after that description. And this breakfast chapter has everything you want. It's got bacon, grits, hash browns, omelets, even pancakes. So this breakfast chapter really is bringing it, starting your day off right. Juices and smoothies brings us to our next section. If you could have one juice or smoothie instantly appear from this book right now in front of you, which juice or smoothie would it be?
I feel attacked.
I know. Pick a baby. I'm asking you to pick a baby.
Oh man. I mean, I can't. It's 9 of them in there. It's like really a lot of great ones in there specifically.
They are.
And I can't pick one. I honestly will pick them all, but I love mixing. I will say this. How about I pick one that I love with one of my favorite ingredients, which is chia seeds.
Great.
Chia seeds is a superfood in itself. It's a binder too. Not to mention, you don't just have to use it for smoothies, but you could throw chia seeds in your different mixes of baked goods and cakes and more, pancakes and more. And but chia seeds is definitely a winner when it comes to smoothies and blends. So is banana, specifically that potassium, and serve as a really, really good base in itself. But then you go into the leafy greens and the celeries and the apples of the world where you're doing the juicing, because what a lot of people don't realize when you're juicing and extracting from certain fruits and vegetables that are by design that can be juiced and cold pressed, you're opening up the cell membranes of that fruit, and you're getting even more nutrients into the form of fluid. And that's just like a super boost of nutrients that you're taking in and digesting, versus when you do it in its whole form, where you have fiber. Some of you miss out on some of those nutrients when it goes through your digestive tract, versus a juice cold press. All those nutrients are going right into your bloodstream, which is going to give you a shot of energy, and you'll be jumping off the wall.
Yes. Yeah. We've got a couple juicers. They're in storage right now because we're space for it right now. We don't have space in our fridge to because when we'll do it, we'll juice like a bunch but we'll drink it quick. We go through it quickly too, because it's so good, and you feel so good when you're drinking it.
Feels so good. You feel like a superhero.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And we got we finally, after trying all these different juicers, we got one last year that we loved. I can't wait to get it back out. But you have so many delicious options.
What juicer is this?
It's called Sovitor, I think is the brand.
Sovitor. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
and
always listening for new.
Well, because they can be a pain, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they're great, and so this is the only one I've met so far that I've loved. All of them otherwise I've been kind of like, yeah, it did the job, but now I'm like, I can't get all the fibers out of it, and it's difficult to clean or whatever. So it's Sovitor. I think it's Sovider. Sovitor. Maybe it's pronounced differently, but yes. Well, so many delicious options in this section, which is why it's hard to pick one. Listeners, you can thrive with this section here with the Choco Power smoothie, berry beet smoothie, green mango smoothie, strawberry cashew smoothie, blueberry oatmeal smoothie, watermelon juice, beet juice, and green juice. But even
the watermelon, I give you that one. Yeah. Again,
is that your favorite?
My OGs know from my Ironman triathlon days. I've been a big proponent of juice watermelon in any capacity. So yes, I will say that, and strawberries. I've been on a strawberry kick lately, man.
I mean, I hope you're finding good ones. It's been so hard for me.
I rely on the frozen ones.
That's good then. Good.
That's the best way,
because that's the closest you're gonna get.
That's the closest you're gonna get for sure, without them being bad and spoiled. So yeah, frozen strawberries for the win.
It's been really the last 3-4 years. I feel like when I go to look for strawberries, they're disgusting. I'm like, this is terrible. And
I don't know what's going on with the harvesting and the farming, but you're right.
That's probably just because they take so long to get to us. By the time they get to us,
yeah, for sure.
Oh, well, next summer I need to seek out local strawberries then, and that's going to be my mission. Yeah. Not only do you have all those wonderful recipes in here, you go over a smoothie layering formula for everyone, so the home cook can start to create their very own smoothies, create their own favorite recipes at home. It's so nice. This helps people feel empowered to create their own with their favorite foods. It's great. Next section is soups and bowls. So right off the bat, the picture right there, I want these mushroom ramen noodle bowls so bad. They're powered up with flavor and nutrients with mushrooms, ginger, spinach, tofu. And it was so hard for me to get beyond the gorgeous photo. Speaking of watermelon again, the watermelon gazpacho. I'm not usually a gazpacho guy, but I think this might have changed my mind a little bit. But what is a crowd pleaser in this chapter? A soup or bowl the home cook can serve to their dinner guest if they're vegan or not, and they're just going to be so happy with it.
Well, I can't tell you my favorite bowl. I out of this section, I'm always going to lead with the OG, the Iwi bowl.
That's good, because I was going to ask you to tell us all about it.
Such a good bowl. So it's a bowl that I have a bed of leafy greens, again mixed in with dino kale, and sometimes even micro broccoli in there too, as a portion. It's pistachios, diced tomatoes, Japanese sweet potatoes. Or you can use a traditional sweet potato. What I like about the Japanese sweet potato is it's a hybrid potato. It's a combination of the traditional Idaho potato and the sweet potato. So you believe it or not, guys, when you bake that potato and you eat into it, you're getting a contrast of sweet and savory in one bite of a potato. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful, and there's so many potatoes out there. I'm a Midwest guy, you're a Midwest guy, so you can probably appreciate that we are potato guys, right?
Love
them. Like, don't trust nobody.
All forms,
and don't trust no one that doesn't like potatoes.
We need to make that a shirt.
We do.
Someone said that to me. They were like, I don't really like potatoes recently. And I was like,
red flag.
Yeah, red flag. I just thought it was a carnival. Turns out you don't like potatoes.
Yeah, something's
Red
wrong
flag.
with you. Yeah. So the Japanese potato is really, really great far as the profile in itself. And then we do a smoked tempeh with that as the super rich protein portion of that specifically, followed by a avocado in the middle. And then I do a homemade, well, everything's homemade in the book, but a dill dressing that no one to this day I think can match my dill dressing.
All right.
Like I will go on any cooking show and just blow people away with this specific. I have a lot of great sauces and DIY recipes in terms of the dressings
Sure.
that you can dress up your food, including the beef barbecue and more.
Oh,
But
delicious.
that dill dressing is one of my favorites, and I share that recipe on what makes it really, really special. And you just drench that, or you do a light drizzle on top of that specific bowl, and then you use the beef barbecue. The beef barbecue is such a compliment to it. The dill dressing, because the dill dressing profile with the apple vinegar in it, it's such a beautiful marriage between both of those flavor and profiles. And you can top it off and drink it down with sparkling water. It's the best way. You need carbonation to get this bowl down. That's how good it is.
I love it.
Yeah.
What's the base of that dill dressing?
Yeah, the base. So you can do the cashews, or, which is obviously the more healthier options. Or if you're trying to cut a corner and go easy and just make it really quick, you can use mayo, a vegan mayo specifically. But those are the two primary bases, again, with the apple vinegar, and the sweetener used is maple syrup specifically. And obviously fresh dill, sea salt, and of course the king of kings when it comes to spices, garlic. Where would we be without garlic?
Where would we be without garlic?
Like,
I don't know.
I don't understand.
This podcast certainly wouldn't exist without it. Yeah. Oh man. Well, I got to try that dill dressing. And you've got lots of great stuff in this chapter, including a tomato soup and grilled cheese, hitting us where the comfort gets us the most. Iron Man spinach and broccoli soup, loaded chipotle chili, crispy, crunchy, creamy chickpea Caesar bowls, tomato tuna poke bowls with yum sauce, buffalo cauliflower and chicken wings bowls, and then the Chicago taco bowl with walnut and mushroom meat. So what makes it a Chicago taco bowl?
Yeah, Chicago it's changed over the years, but growing up, I grew up on a lot of Latin food specifically. So it's inspired by the Latin community here, as we have such a great Latin community here and heritage here that I'm really proud to be a part of, and had that nostalgic moment to create that specifically in that bowl. The community in Latin food in itself is so influential. It's in our school systems too, our public school systems, where we grew up on these taco salads specifically. I don't know if you guys did in Michigan, but we grew up on a lot of different taco salads specifically. And it was the taco salads and the pizzas that us as kids will look forward to. So one thing that the listener should know about this book, I take you down memory lane, where I veganized some of my favorite recipes growing up in Chicago, whether it been my aunt's green peppers, loaded peppers, to my mom's infamous enchiladas. And so my mom used to make a lot of, that's one of my favorite recipes that she made, enchiladas, and I veganized that. So you'll learn that there's usually a preface through most of the recipes that give you a little bit of a backstory and a history to that recipe, and why I chose that recipe to you guys.
Yeah, that's great. So people know where that inspiration is coming from, and we're getting a little bit of behind the story behind the recipe today, which is what we're all about. So we appreciate that. And our next section here is small plates, sandwiches, and burgers. So for a person who just bought this book, what's the first thing you would recommend that they make from the small plate sandwiches? Beef burger. I love it.
I got inspired by it. So again, to my day ones, they know I spent 6 years in New York. New York is like my second home, right? Chicago is always the fortress of solitude. This is where my origin, where I was birthed at and raised at. And then my two homes that run neck and neck is Atlanta and New York. And obviously Atlanta's where I live now. But that's when I got introduced to beef burgers in itself. That's not that was something that I was inspired. I couldn't believe. Shout out to Dan. I don't know if you remember him from Chickpea and Olive.
I don't know if I went to Chickpea and Olive.
Yeah, they're one of the original. They're no longer in business now, but they're one of the original.
This is in New York?
Yeah, in New York, one of the
It sounds
original
familiar.
pop-up vegan restaurants.
Okay.
There was pop-up, but then they was able to get into Whole Foods.
Okay.
In Brooklyn, Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And he created, this beet burger that blew my mind the way he introduced it to the world specifically. And it's been a history of us creating beet burgers specifically, and it was really good. Don't get me wrong, it was really good. But as you know, as a chef, we're wired to want to, either re-engineer, or we're wired to want to make it even better.
Sure.
Or
sure.
to fit
Always,
our
yeah.
palate
Yeah,
specifically.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so with this beet burger, it's one of my favorites to make specifically, like the beet spaghetti beet ball specifically, because again, I think beet is such a underused vegetable that you can do so much with. And I recommend that in this chapter, the beet burger. It's my beet burger that I made years and years and years ago. But I was inspired by some of the most best chefs in New York back in the day, 10, 15 years ago, that was making beet burgers from scratch. And yeah.
Have you always loved beets this much?
No, yeah, I actually didn't get introduced to beets. Funny you mentioned that. I was just having this conversation the other day. I didn't get introduced to beets or kale. A lot of the stuff I use today until I was an adult.
Yeah.
Food insecurity and coming from different marginalized communities and accessibility and more. A lot of the plants that I use in my diet and my cooking did not come until I was in my late 20s. So which is a good segue to let you guys know it's never too late to start down this journey or to discover foods, plant rich foods, no matter if you're a 80-year-old Dominick or an 8-year-old Dominick, it doesn't matter. So but beets is something I remember during my Ironman triathlon days, trying to find ways to improve my nutrition. And this is when I was primarily raw. People forget that I was primarily raw, and there was times in my timeline where I was completely raw with my diet. And beets specifically served as a really good pre-workout when you juice it specifically, because then we didn't have all these fancy pre-workouts with these synthetic caffeines anymore. And I was just trying to find a way to just give me an extra boost and an extra edge to competition. And beets was what did it. So I did a lot of juicing. I would integrate my juice beets with my juice watermelon, and it's the perfect recipe for a pre-workout. So if you want a pre-workout that's holistic and whole plant-based, combine beets with watermelon.
That sounds really good. Yeah. Well, thank you later. I will. I'm gonna try it. I will. There's in the No Meat Athlete cookbook, there's a beet and lentil borscht that I've made so many times. I don't get down with beets that much. I'm not gonna lie. I like them. I am lazy about the process of them. Sometimes I get them, prepackaged or something, but I will roast them in the skin and then take them out of the skin. My husband loves them though, and I'm glad he does, because it has pushed me to like make them more,
You're so right. Yeah, guys, beets are messy. They are messy as fuck. They'll stain your shirts and your fingers. And look, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think none of us like the process of the beets and the aftermath. So yeah, be prepared for a messy, bloody looking kitchen. But it's so worth it.
It is worth it, and it is cool, like how you use them. The color it can actually create and things is so. And how do you feel about beet powder? I don't mean to put you on the spot with this question, but I'm curious then, like beet powder, because I do have some of that. Can we?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I think beet powder is a good substitute as a supplement for sure.
Like if you wanted to do watermelon smoothie with like a scoop of beet powder
absolutely,
in there.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Because now I'm hooked on this watermelon beet.
Yeah, you don't lose too much of the nutrient profiling of the from the beet powder itself. So beet powder as a supplement is not bad at all. I think we live in a society now. Social media is trending to being perfectionist people, and you have these influencers that are like very aggressive with like it needs to be completely from the
Yeah.
original source,
Yeah.
the homesteading community, and that's overlapping into the vegan community. But there's nothing wrong with beet powder or other powders, from matcha to maca, to
Yeah.
a lot of different ways. These are superfoods that's going to help you, especially if you want to have a high athletic performance.
Yep, I love that.
Yeah.
And when we're looking at some other items, so we got the beet burger and the small plates, sandwiches and burgers chapter. We got smoky queso in there, fantastic fritters with variations like sweet corn and jalapeno, zucchini and herb fritters, and broccoli and cheese fritters, crab cakes with remoulade sauce.
Make me hungry now.
I know, right? This chapter, egg salad, collard wraps, mega tofu, BLT, better burgers. Is that the beet burger?
Yes.
The better burger?
Yeah. Well, one of the variations.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we got the chickpea tahini burgers, lentils, sloppy joes, maple roasted Brussels sprouts, and barbecue pulled mushroom sandwiches. So get into it, everybody. That is your small plate sandwiches and burgers section. And now we're going into soul food redefined. So let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Redefining soul food. What does that look like for you in this book?
Yeah. So we go through the history of how soul food so this chapter is going to really help you do a lot of unpacking regarding the history of what soul food is in itself, how slavery, back in the slavery days, how these secondhand foods and the scraps were really given to slaves to make the best of what they could, and it was deemed as soul food. So we break down the history of my people, of what we went through during those days specifically, and kind of like redefining what it should really look like in today's day of what real soul food, in my opinion, and in a lot of Black vegans' opinions, should be, specifically because feeding your soul dead flesh and dead energy is not really the best thing to do, or feeding your body that's not, in my view, soulful or helpful in any capacity. So with that, and I don't want to break down too much, but I promise you, when you read that chapter and that information, it's going to help you really do some unpacking, but you're not going to be able to unsee what you just read, because we really did a huge, rich, deep dive on that history, specifically of soul food. And I think it's going to fascinate a lot of different people. And we give you also a really great, one of my other favorite recipes in this book is called a soul bowl, where we do smoked tempeh barbecue in itself, and the vegan mac and cheese mixed with the collard greens and the sweet jiffy, some cornbread that we do on our own version a lot. Again, if you're from the Midwest, like me, you remember the Jiffy boxes of cornbread that we all grew up on, 35 cents a box.
Yeah,
yeah, remember
I know
that?
exactly what you're talking. My dad's house every other weekend.
Yeah, the blue and white box specifically, and we give you that version of. Again, this is a nostalgic this book has a lot of nostalgic memories in there, but we give you, again, our version of soul food that's really good for the body, the soul, just the whole entire mindset and the psyche of a human being. Yeah,
that's great. And soul food that lights you up, redefined.
Yep.
And you've got that soul bowl in there that you talked about, loaded with the goods, and it can come with that side. You can put a little bit of side of that cornbread on there too, because you've got a delicious cornbread recipe in here.
It's so good.
And the picture's gorgeous. It like popped off the page at me.
And add my grandmother's potato salad.
Yes.
Yeah, we got the potato salad recipe. You got to add it to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, we can just keep adding things to it.
Why not?
Why not? That's the balance today. The balance today is yes.
Is
the answer is
it
yes.
Thanksgiving yet? I mean, now you made me want to make some Thanksgiving food, right? Or
We're almost there. We're almost. I mean, really, I'm like, hey, if you want it, make it any time of the year.
Agreed.
Mains is our next section. So is there a recipe that ended up in this section because it is a favorite among those that have been following Eat What Elephants Eat for all these years? A fan favorites in the main section by any chance?
A lot of them ended up in there, but I recently made one that's my favorite. I just mentioned it not too long ago, the beet balls, which is a payment. It's like a homage to my my aunt Sophie. She used to make And there's different ways to make spaghetti. You have people that integrate the sauce right away into the pasta, and not just like to me that's mid, what they call mid and meh. And my aunt, she would do the pasta and let it sit. You know pasta.
Oh, because you're talking about put the sauce in right away.
Yeah, some people
and then
do
the
that.
noodles are gonna
Put it
soak
in
it
there,
all
they'll
up.
soak it up, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
warm. It's just not a good,
It's not a good approach.
and
that
there's
pasta-ing.
and restaurants do it, mom and dads do it, and then you have
Mhm.
those people and like my aunt that let the pasta sit to become sticky in its own way,
Mhm.
where it's just room temperature after it's cooled off and been drained and everything like that. And then she would put this amazing from scratch tomato sauce on top of that. And to me, the flavoring is just different compared to the former of what we discussed.
Yeah.
And then you add some beet balls, which is so easy to make. So easy. I just
Mhm.
made it for my aunt, the one I'm talking about, and my mom. And my aunt was just blown away. She was like,
Yeah.
"Wow!" And that was her. Again, her recipe was originally the animal version, and I veganized that. So that's one of my favorites, if you're asking me. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a great video recently on
Yeah.
Instagram where you show
Yeah.
your mom and your
Yeah.
aunt the
The
book.
beet ball, yeah, and I made them the beet ball spaghetti
It's
for that
so
specifically,
lovely.
yeah. And
Yeah.
again, it's a Midwest thing, and the reason why it's nostalgia that we're filming this podcast in the Midwest, and we're talking about a lot of great, very Midwest food forward driven recipes that we grew up in the Midwest eating.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on this chapter. You've got the mac and cheese in here, and I know we talked about it going in the soul bowl, but
Mhm.
what I love
Mhm.
about your recipe, you know, us as vegans over the years, we have gotten wild about mac and cheese.
It's a fight. It's a civil war about mac
when
and cheese.
back in the day, someone gave us a great base that's got potatoes and carrots, and now I tend to go back to that variation being like, this is pure delicious and wonderful. What have we been doing? And you're giving us one of those true pure delicious versions in this book, so I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
you remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember making that recipe. Like, oh man, that was one of my first recipes. Because mac and cheese is just like, oh man, it's like part of your arsenal that you
Mhm.
gotta have in some capacity. But yeah, I remember making my first mac and cheese recipe made from potatoes, onions, and carrots.
Yep.
And you add a nutritional yeast for the little bit of the sharpness and more on the veggie broth and more. But yeah, there's a war going on in the vegan community with like who has the best recipes, from the cashew base to the to the potato. It's so many variations of vegan mac and cheese.
And you know, can you think of a restaurant, like if you were to pinpoint, and do you have a restaurant where you've had a good vegan mac and cheese that's memorable to you?
Wow, that's a really good question. I would say, it was a spot called in DC. I don't think they're there anymore. I think they moved, if I'm not mistaken. I think they moved. But you know what? I can't remember their name, but there was like, I think vegetarian, vegan, something vegan soul or something.
Okay.
But if you're in Chicago, that has a really good fried vegan mac and cheese. Liberation Kitchen.
Oh, they sure do.
Their
They sure do.
mac and cheese is lit.
We actually, an event we did with PCRM, we actually used that mac and cheese and a bunch of non-vegans. We were like, here, everybody, dig in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they the good news about Liberation Kitchen, I've been supporting those guys, which is their former branding from that restaurant was called Upton's Kitchen, which is
Upton's Break Room. Yep.
Upton's Break Room. Yeah. But the brand in the store, if you're looking for, you don't have to come to Chicago to have their mac and cheese. They have this mac and cheese called Upton's Naturals. They did a really good job without it being highly processed, where they have the cheese in a package. And it's very easy to make. It takes 2 to 5 minutes to make. You just cook up the pasta and squeeze that cheese onto the mac and cheese. So yeah, shout out to Upton's Naturals. They're one of the OG brands in the vegan community,
and still self-funded.
And amazing company that has a really good mac and cheese. So yeah, I would say they have a really good one.
Absolutely. Shout out to Dan and Nicole, owners of Upton's here. We love them.
Yeah.
And that mac and cheese, I love that pouch. I love that they made it so simple and
it's
so easy.
simple.
Yeah.
And you can re-engineer it and remix it yourself. Like just add your own spices if you want it more sweeter or more savory or more sharper. But they give you a good base to begin with. So they did a good job.
I've got a box in the counter. As you're talking about it, I'm like, maybe that's what I'm having for dinner.
There we go.
Well, so many good things here in the mains chapter. We want to mention the mushroom cream penne. We've got spaghetti squash Alfredo, beef and bean enchiladas, creamy mashed potatoes with mushroom brown gravy, orange chicken, and even an almond crusted tofu salmon.
So, one of my favorites too. That's another one of my favorites.
Tell me about the salmon then. So it's almond crusted tofu salmon. How are you getting the flavors of the sea in there?
We always forget that anything that we make that we veganize in a form of flavoring that mimics seafood, people always forget seafood is influenced. The flavor in the seafood is influenced by the most powerful plant. One of the most powerful plants in the ocean, seaweed, in itself. We always forget
that's
that.
Why. That's where that flavor comes.
Exactly, it's from the plants, the botanicals in the oceans. Like it's incredible, right? So same thing we do with the salmon tofu specifically. We do a very special way of increasing that flavoring profile, and again using my favorite beets to create this presentation that tastes really, really good. That it does not, I promise you guys, it does not taste like tofu. It tastes like salmon.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I love that. I'm gonna have to try it.
Yeah.
Well, this takes us into sweet treats, the end of the book here, and I gravitate towards the sweet life with offerings like lemon loaf and lemon icing, and I don't even like, I just wanted to make this loaf right when I saw it. And I'm curious though, you already answered the question. I was going to say, it says brownies in a Jiffy. And I was like, is this from the Jiffy mix?
It is. Did you have the opportunity as a kid to taste the Jiffy brownie mix? Because I don't think they make it anymore.
I did. I think I tried like the gamut of the Jiffy products.
The blueberry muffins and all of that. Yeah.
And the biscuits were one that we always went to.
About the biscuits.
And we would do different.
The pizza too? The pizza crust?
Yeah. I was going to say we did weird shit with the pizza crust too, where we would make it into like breads. So we try all these different things with it because it was my dad's not a cook. My parents were divorced, and every other weekend when I would go to my dad's, he would be like, "What am I gonna do?" And we'd go to the store, and it would be like deli slices and Jiffy boxes.
Yeah, it's basically a Midwest thing, man. I think because Jiffy is based here in the Midwest.
Is it?
Yeah, they're based, but they had a big influence throughout the Midwest. So I think hopefully you guys know who we're talking about when we say Jiffy. I feel like people do with the cornbread because they spread.
I think so. And is it still? I wonder if the box looks the same.
It does. If you go into, it depends on the store. Yeah. So they still sell the cornbread.
Is the mix vegan? And do we know? Have you looked? I'm gonna look now.
I haven't looked. I just know I veganized my version.
Yeah,
of it.
Yeah.
I haven't looked because I haven't had it since being a vegan.
Me neither. I'm so curious now. I have to check it out.
But the brownie, my culinary background, how I started, is pretty interesting. It's twofold. Where I had to fend for myself cooking growing up because my mom was a single mom working multiple jobs, so I had to do a lot of cooking. But I actually started my culinary experience baking.
Okay.
Like baking specifically.
Sure.
And it was with that damn brownie mix. It was so easy. It required only 2 eggs.
It was very easy.
The powder and water. That's it.
Yep.
That's it. You mix it in, and the actual mix in itself was so good. You put it in a little muffin pans and more. But I'll scoop that bowl up, and the cocoa that they used back then, again in the 80s compared to now, is more refined and processed now. You can still get some really good holistic cocoa that's sourced ethically, specifically in chocolate. But back then, like anything, including like the glutens back then, the wheat flours back then, it was just a little bit more wholesome. And the flavoring profile was a lot different. So we mimicked that with my version of one of the very first recipes that I ever cooked as a kid. Was brownies. Yeah, that was one of the first things. My first 2 recipes that I really did as a kid was smashed grilled cheese. As you probably remember, you'll smash the grilled cheese down, and that was a Midwest
No,
thing
I
too.
never did. I don't
never
think
did
I
it,
did.
Matt?
What do you mean you smash? Would you smash it down with like
Just
a spatula? Or something?
Yeah,
Oh
just
yeah, I
spatula.
guess I did do that. Yeah, I definitely did that. Yeah. Okay.
Just cheese, grilled cheese, and brownies was like one of the first two things that I made as a little 8-year-old Dominic.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And they both made it into the book then.
They made it in the book. They made it in the book. Yeah, they made it in the book.
I love it. Well, we've got lots of sweet treats in here. Is the brownie your favorite, or what's your favorite?
Brownies?
Okay.
I'm a brownie king when it comes to if you make a good brownie and it's really wholesome, and I'm not talking about the chewy brownie, and I'm not talking about the cake brownie. It's like that mix.
Yep.
It's a finesse to it. It's
the in between.
the in between that leans a little bit more towards cakey.
When I know exactly what
You know
you're
what I'm
talking
talking about.
about, and the
Yeah,
bite is like very decadent
Yes,
too.
it's it's crumbling apart. It's almost like crumble cake.
And when you get to the end of it too, you're kind of like, oh, I don't need any more, but you're like, I want all of
more.
this
I want
right
all
now.
of this. Get in my belly.
Yep.
With this oat milk.
Yep, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there's lots of good stuff in here. You got date and fig energy balls, roasted stone fruit with sweet cashew cream, blenderberry muffins, and peach cobbler. And I nearly forgot. We've got pumpkin chocolate chip cookies. I made them just for you.
Oh man!
You don't have to eat them on camera. Don't worry. You're welcome to dive in now. You can do whatever you absolutely.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah, I didn't even see this.
Yeah, we got. I forgot. If you're watching,
I was gonna go to the gym after this, but I guess I'm not.
If you're watching, everyone, I cooked from the book. We made the pumpkin chocolate chip cookies, so he's not giving you just a chocolate chip cookie.
It's so good.
Hey, I had to do it.
Thank you for that.
Well,
man.
I'm glad you like it.
I
Oh, thank
appreciate that.
God. I'm glad you like it.
It's just like it. Yeah.
It's nerve-wracking to cook from someone else's book.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. Again, your chef, you know how it is. It's kind of. It's not always easy to mimic someone else's recipe, for sure.
Well, and I tell you,
but you hit a home run with this one.
These were, well, thank you. I made these yesterday. We're all having a hard time in America. And I ate probably 4 of them yesterday. So they really served me well when I needed them most. And that wraps us up for Eat What Elephants Eat, vegan recipes for a strong body and a gentle spirit. And now, as you're finishing chewing your pumpkin chocolate chip cookie, I ask you, from this book, when you think of it, it's not out yet. Remind everybody, it's coming out January 7th. What is a book brag for you? Something you're most proud of when it comes to writing this book?
I think, excuse me. This book took a lot of sweat and tears. Honestly, I'm so proud of the final presentation from beginning to end. But something recently that I'm really proud of that we're going through right now as we speak is the audio book.
Are you doing the audio?
I'm doing the audio.
Yeah, so good.
We already started that process, and we're going to wrap it up next week. That is, again, I'm proud of what we wrote, but the intensity of the audio is one of my proudest moments, because I get a chance to, with you, go through your ears and read back to you a lot of wealth of information that I think you all are going to really appreciate. So that's my most proudest moment is right now, because I'm in the mix of it right now, is the audio portion.
I was gonna say so far, because this is just the part, you're in that part right before a book comes out. So when this comes out, you're gonna have other proud moments.
Exactly. Other proud moments, but it's so much, including the experience going to Birmingham. The food photographer team, amazing food photographer team. They're the same food photographer team that shot Snoop Dogg's cookbook.
Amazing. That's awesome.
And I had the honor of having these amazing women from Birmingham, Alabama, in their kitchen shoot my book. And again, it's very humbling.
Did they eat the food at all?
Of course. I was on set eating with them.
Did they like it? They had to have loved it.
Yeah. But and it's so fascinating, because just to give the listeners a little bit about, this is my first cookbook. It's not going to be the last. So the process that I learned, I never knew how much went into a cookbook. So much. And just to see, this is what these people do for a living. To create this recipe like that on demand. And it tastes just like it. It's identical to it. There's no aesthetic paint being thrown on the
Right,
food or nothing
right.
like that. It's just mind blowing the setting that they in real time.
Yeah.
And the photographer, shout out to her, Caitlin. She was editing the photo as we went
Wow.
and sending it to the publishing team, and that was it. There was no like going back, let's re-edit this.
Yeah.
That's just how she works.
Yeah.
You know, she just right then and there, as soon as she takes the photo, she's editing as she goes, like different variations and sending that, zipping it over through email, which is
Wow.
it's fascinating just to work with other professionals in
Yeah.
this space. Yeah.
It's really cool to see. Food photography is it's a beast, and
It's a beast. It's a beast. Yeah, it really is. It's just very interesting, and it's expensive too.
Yeah.
The
Yes,
process
it
it's a
is.
full-on production.
Yes, it is. You want it good, it's gonna cost.
Yeah, yeah.
And so worth it. Everybody, the photos in this book are outstanding. Along with the text, of course, everything in it is so great. And this is Eat What Elephants Eat, vegan recipes for a strong body and a gentle spirit, which brings us to your rapid fire round of questions. Are you ready, sir?
Yes, I am ready. Let's go.
All right, here we go. 1, pizza or pasta?
That's so not fair. Oh my God, that's so not. You're gonna hit me with that one. You know what? I'm gonna say pizza because I'm in Chicago today, and we all grew up on pizza here in Chicago, so I'm gonna say pizza.
Do you have a place where you like vegan pizza here in Chicago?
Yeah, Kitchen 17 has a pretty solid pizza. So does I forgot the name of those guys. They have the the deeper dish one. But my favorite, I'm gonna tell you guys right now, my favorite Chicago vegan deep dish pizza in the world. I haven't found a place that can match this energy because I grew up on Pizzeria Uno and Due, the original Ohio Street, not the franchise ones that you guys find in almost every market. If you're ever in Chicago, there's an original one on Ohio Street where it's like very homemade from scratch, iron cast pans that they use to blast through like a 500-degree oven and more. But this place in California called Masa, it's an eco park, Masa Pizza. They use the OG of cheeses, and you know where I'm going with this. Teas. Cheese.
Oh,
you remember Teas?
I do.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, you gotta be an OG vegan.
When you said OG, even I was like, "Where's he going?" I was like, "Oh, Teas." Okay.
Teas, which is a Chicago company. Yeah, Teas. They do not sell them to consumers, even though a lot of vegans over the years have petitioned them to sell that damn cheese to the consumer. They still are only selling them to retailers, and so they use Teas cheese, and they use their own. And they're in Chicago, so they're a restaurant in California, but the family that owns it is from Chicago. So they did it right. They perfected that crust. Our deep dish pizza, as you know, in Chicago has a sweetness to it that tastes almost like a Jiffy cornbread crust. Very sweet.
It all goes to Jiffy.
It does. So shout out to the Masa. It's a really great vegan pizza. It's my favorite vegan deep dish Chicago pizza in the nation.
I love it. All right. And that wasn't a rapid fire. That was just me going on a pizza tangent with you. So I'm gonna rope you back in and give you another difficult one here. Pancakes or waffles?
He's attacking me today.
I know.
Again, I feel like all my answers today is going to be Chicago themed. So I'm gonna go. I grew up on pancakes.
Okay.
So pancakes.
Okay. And there's everyone a delicious pancake recipe in the book. I think it's called Nostalgic Pancakes, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's homage to the IHOP pancakes.
So good choice today. Good choice. Texting or calling?
Calling.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Hot sauce or barbecue sauce?
Hot sauce.
Favorite day of the week?
Every day, because every day is a blessing.
There you go. Books or movies?
Movies.
Winter or summer?
Summer.
Comedy or drama?
Comedy.
Hiking or biking?
Biking.
Spontaneous or planner?
Spontaneous.
Sunset or sunrise?
Sunrise.
Okay. And camping or glamping?
Man. A little bit of both.
There you go.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Can we do that?
You can have a hybrid on that.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, there you go. You did it. You did it. Very good.
Those were some tough questions too. Like, I feel like I'm gonna get attacked.
Well, it's I've tried to like hone it in now to give. Sometimes I make them like too difficult, where it's like someone requires a longer answer, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have done that to you. So I'm trying to make it a one or the other situation.
But that last one kind of caught me off guard because I feel like with the new technology, like Thule
Oh
has
yeah.
amazing tent that you can put on top of your trucks or
Ah.
cars, and you don't need the van life. You can just
Yeah.
sleep up there.
Yep. Yep.
And that's coming to market. So I love where the camping and the van life is going in that capacity.
I think for me that with that question, I'm like 20 years ago camping. Within the
Yeah.
last 5 years, let's make it glamping and call it hybrid maybe for those 10, 15 years in between it. But the last 5 years, I'm like, let's get on the glamping trail. Why not?
That's how I feel about cycling. I used to be anti e-bike. I was
Okay.
like, that's not a real bike.
Uh-huh.
Until you actually realize the incredible things that you can do and save energy and gas, and you're getting a workout in. The e-bikes, I'm talking about pedal assistant e-bikes, are really the future.
Yeah.
You can go on and on and get a workout.
Oh,
And I'm not talking
sure.
about motorized bikes where you don't do no pedaling. I'm talking about true e-bikes and Specialized. Shout out to Specialized. They did a really great job in engineering the pedal assistant e-bikes. And so I'm team e-bike too when it comes to that. When it comes to sustainable traveling, if you can afford it, get you an e-bike over a car. For sure. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that was your rapid fire. So before we wrap up here, what else do you have going on? Anything else you want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, so the book comes out January 7th, 2 days before my birthday. My
Look
birthday's
at
January
that
9th.
birthday present.
Yeah, it's a great birthday present. We're also working on a movie, a feature major film. And I can't give away where the casting just yet. But it's based on my my life.
Awesome.
My earlier days of being a young Dominick in the streets of Chicago, and it's really centered around the incarceration component of my transformation. So this is a major feature film that will come out at the end of 2025, beginning 2026. We're shooting it with an incredible director, and I can't wait to present that to you guys. It's called Land of the Wolves.
Nice.
And it's based on a young Dominick. So that's coming out, but also too in 2026 we're launching. If you all, my day ones, remember my daughter, my fur daughter, my baby, my heart, Soka. That's her government name, Soka Thompson, but a lot of you all knew her online as Scruff McFly. She transitioned a little over 3 years ago, and I promised her that her legacy would continue. And we are in 2026 launching Scruff McFly Brewery and Dog Park. And I can't wait to present that project and that company and that brand to the world, because it's a beverage company that's catering and serving their demographics that are sober. And it's also a beverage and company that's catering the dog parents too, as well, of the world that do like to have a good time. And the percentage of the sales is going to go towards our dog sanctuary, where senior and disabled dogs can live in their forever home. So it's a really good brand, a really good project. And that is the future of Dom Thompson, Scruff McFly Brewery and Dog Park. Yeah.
And where's that opening up at?
The first location is going to be Atlanta. The second location is going to be Chicago.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go and support it. That's awesome.
Me too. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on all the good stuff coming up.
Thank you.
Including, everybody, the release of the book, so everyone can pre-order Eat What Elephants Eat, Vegan Recipes for a Strong Body and a Gentle Spirit. Now, pre-order it now everywhere books are sold. It even makes a great Christmas gift. You just, put it a little card to your friend, and you put a little note in there that says, on January 7th, you're getting this beautiful book. It's coming out January 7th, and it is an essential item for starting out on your New Year path, on the pathway that works for you and the pathway that you deserve. Dom, always a pleasure. So grateful you stopped by. Thank you for taking the time to be a guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. And to the listeners listening, thank you so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much for listening. We'd be so grateful if you would rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. It really does help us.
Yes, thank you so much. And don't forget to check out keeponcookin.com for all of the latest in recipes and Keep On Cookin' updates. This has been a Muzzy Cat production.